An academic initiative works to revive liberal arts as a key part of the college experience.
I'm not trying to get students away from engineering or business degrees. I'm trying to give them just a much more complete education.
Major funding for the PBS NewsHour has been provided by the ongoing support of these individuals and institutions, and friends of the NewsHour, including Leonard and Norma Clorfine, and the Judy and Peter Bloom Kovler Foundation.
Two retired executives turn their focus to greyhounds, giving these former race dogs a real chance to win. A Raymond James financial advisor gets to know you, your purpose, and the way you give back. Life well planned.
As somebody coming out of college, it can be very nerve-wracking, not knowing what to expect, whether you like your job or not, whether you make friends, whether you fit in. And here, I feel like it's so welcoming and such an inclusive place to work. You just feel like you're valued.
The William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. For more than 50 years, advancing ideas and supporting institutions to promote a better world at hewlett.org. And with the ongoing support of these individuals and institutions. By the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the NewsHour. As we near the 2-week mark to Election Day, former President Donald Trump traveled to North Carolina to see the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, while Vice President Kamala Harris toured swing states alongside former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney. Laura Barone Lopez has this report.
The Democratic nominee for president campaigned with unlikely company today, Republicans.
This election is presenting, for the first time probably in certainly recent history, a very clear choice and difference between two nominees. And I think that is what, as much as anything, is bringing us as Americans together.
Vice President Kamala Harris spent the day in moderated conversations with former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney, starting in Pennsylvania.
I've spent time working in countries where people aren't free and where people are struggling for their freedom. And I know how quickly democracies can unravel. But I tell you, again, as someone who has seen firsthand how quickly it can happen, that is what's on the ballot.
It's the latest in a string of unprecedented events Harris has held with Republican figures like Cheney. The pair then made their way to Michigan for another event.
What is at stake in this election is so fundamental that it really does cross partisan lines.
Meanwhile, Harris's running mate, Governor Tim Walz, spent the morning with the hosts of The View.
Nothing Donald Trump is proposing does anything about the middle class, and every economist, Moody's themselves, talked about what it would do to drive up inflation, potentially leading us to a recession. So there's more work to be done. We acknowledge that. I think the Vice President's proposals are real.
Former President Donald Trump was in Swananoa, North Carolina, to tour storm damage from the recent hurricane.
But it's vital that we not let this hurricane that has taken so much also take your voice. You must get out and vote.
Trump repeated baseless claims about the federal government's response to the disaster.
Certainly, you have all heard the same stories that we all hear, that FEMA has done a very poor job. They were not supposed to be spending the money on taking in illegal migrants, maybe so they could vote in the election, because that's a lot of people are saying that's why they're doing it.
Later, the former president again deployed dark and anti-immigrant rhetoric in Greenville, North Carolina.
Under the Trump administration, we are going to take back what is ours. We will end the looting, ransacking, raping, and pillaging of North Carolina and, frankly, every other state in the union.
On Sunday, Trump scooped French fries and served fast food to staged customers at a Pennsylvania McDonald's.
The political stunt comes as Trump has accused Harris, without any evidence, of lying about her college job at a McDonald's. On the same day, in an interview with Fox News, Trump again described Democrats like Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi as enemies from within.
You talk about the enemy within, America's enemies outside. The enemy within is a pretty ominous phrase if you're talking about other
I think
Americans.
it's accurate. I think it's accurate. But when you look at Shifty Schiff and some of the others, yeah, they are to me the enemy from within. I think Nancy Pelosi is an enemy from within. She lied.
It's rhetoric Trump used against fellow Americans on a podcast days earlier.
It was he said the enemy from within. Of course, it's Adam Schiff. These are bad people. These are sick people and bad people.
Speaker of the House Mike Johnson deflected when asked on CNN this weekend if Trump's vows to use the National Guard against political enemies was okay.
What President Trump was talking about is they had been attacking and aligning them from the day he came down that golden escalator. Everybody knows that's true.
At a rally on Saturday in Montreux, Pennsylvania, hometown of the golf legend Arnold Palmer, the former president started talking about the late golfer's genitalia.
Arnold Palmer was all man. And I say that in all due respect to women, and I love women. He took showers with the other pros. They came out of there and they said, oh my God.
At the same rally, Trump used an expletive when talking about Vice President.
당신 talks team blamed Hezbollah and acknowledged the destruction the war had wrought.
A resolution was possible, but it was rejected, and the situation has escalated out of control as we feared that it could.
Israelis today remain focused on Hezbollah rockets and drones, more than 170 intercepted today, including above the heads of mourners who took cover in a cemetery as they buried a man killed this past weekend by a Hezbollah strike nearby in northern Israel. And Israel is preparing to strike Iran for its unprecedented attack of 180
studio at WETA in Washington, and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.
The world's richest man, Elon Musk, is now a powerful mega donor for Donald Trump. Musk is using his vast resources to campaign for him in Pennsylvania and taking aggressive measures for Mr. Trump in other key battleground states. Some of those moves are raising major legal and ethical concerns as well. Billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk unveiling a new tactic to boost Donald Trump's campaign, pledging to randomly award $1 million to registered swing state voters daily through Election Day.
You're most welcome.
The catch? Sign a petition for his pro-Trump Political Action Committee. The petition is in support of the First and Second Amendments.
It's very straightforward. You don't even have to vote. You don't have to vote. You just have to sign a petition saying you believe in the Constitution.
Musk's Political Action Committee, known as America PAC, has already committed $75 million to the Trump campaign. Some election experts say Musk's latest effort could be illegal. That's because federal law prohibits offering, paying, or accepting payment in exchange for voter registration or voting. But Musk and his allies argue there's an important distinction. Payments and voter status aren't directly linked. They say voter registration is merely a prerequisite to sign the petition. Democratic Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, a supporter of Vice President Kamala Harris, on Sunday called it deeply concerning.
Musk obviously has a right to be able to express his views. I don't deny him that right, but when you start flowing this kind of money into politics, I think it raises serious questions that folks may want to take a look at.
Do you think it might not be legal, yes or no?
I think it's something that law enforcement can take a look at.
It's not clear whether federal officials are looking into the payments. In campaign appearances and online, Musk has spread unfounded claims about widespread voter fraud and made incendiary statements about immigration. Donald Trump has already offered him a key appointment if he's reelected.
At the suggestion of Elon Musk, I will create a government efficiency commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms.
face a massive windmass and shoot up its biggest goal. It's not the other way around. The Defense Department is enormously indebted to SpaceX. It's a huge customer of SpaceX's because SpaceX shoots up their spy satellites and other satellites, and because SpaceX's Starlink satellite communication service provides incredible satellite service all over the world for communication. So those two agencies alone, NASA and the Defense Department, account for a huge chunk of that spending because they want to be in space, and Mr. Musk's companies are the very best at getting it there.
So it sounds like even if there were federal officials and lawmakers who view Elon Musk as an unreliable or problematic partner, that even if there was a will to roll back some of that dependence, there really isn't a way to do it, at least not yet.
That's right. Elon Musk has said, oh, if Kamala Harris is elected, I'm going to jail or something like that. I'm going to lose my contracts. And that's not going to happen. NASA and the Defense Department, which have huge budgets, are hugely dependent on SpaceX. And as we've seen from Boeing's failed attempt to rescue its own astronauts from outer space, there's nobody out there that they can even give those contracts to. So even if Kamala Harris gets elected and then burns with hatred in her heart for Elon Musk, there's really nothing she can do because the government is so dependent on this company.
Lastly, there's lots of attention around the legality of these cash incentives that Elon Musk is offering to swing state voters who sign this petition of his. We've not seen anything like this before. What questions does it raise for you as you do your reporting on Elon Musk and these perceived conflicts of interest?
Well, the question for me is whether this is effectively buying a vote. Is he paying you to vote for Donald Trump? Is he paying you to vote at all if he knows you're a supporter of Donald Trump? Legally, what he says he's doing is just paying you to sign this petition, to sign up for this, to get emails from this PAC. That, probably as far as it goes, is legal. But if it becomes a way to pay you for voting for Donald Trump, or pay you to incentivize you to vote for Donald Trump, that becomes illegal. However, that said, the enforcement mechanisms for U.S. election law are so weak that if it's just a borderline case, I doubt anything happens there.
David Farenthold of the New York Times, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Elon Musk's political efforts are just one high-profile effort by Trump allies to win over voters in key battleground states on